Good evening. Welcome once again to our Celestis Memorial Space Flight. This is the dinner portion for the Enterprise and Tranquility families that are here in attendance. We really enjoy your presentations for those that spoke about their families. We got to see them. This is very important, folks, for this portion of our weekend. And it's unbelievable that it's only day one. Everything that you've done so far, that you've witnessed so far, gets multiplied for the next couple of days. So the fact that you are here right now is very important. So don't leave, even if you're finished eating, don't leave. This is very important for you to get your mission briefing, to know what's happening tomorrow, to know where to be tomorrow, to know what to wear tomorrow night, and so on and so on and so on. And the gentleman that's going to present all of that to you, incredible guy. You've seen him up here a few times. Know more information about space than I think any of us here on our team. Responsible for the partnership between ULA and Celestis to place your loved ones in flight. So without any further ado, let's go ahead. Before he gets up, let's give him a big round of applause for being responsible for everything that you're seeing here for this entire 3 days. So he's going to walk up here. He's going to tell me, great job, Mark, and then he's going to steal the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, our CEO, our guru, our godlike character here, comic book superhero, Mr. Charles Schaefer himself.
Okay, I can't possibly live up to that. But I don't have to, right? We have a great evening for everybody tonight. You know, it's not... We do these missions, and we do always do a memorial service. We always take people out to look at the rocket and, of course, to watch the launch, which is the main reason that you're here. But on occasion, we don't always have a celebratory dinner. And people ask me, well, how do you balance the fact that this is a memorial service with all of the joy and celebration that we do at dinners like this? And for me, it's easy because, as I've said a couple of times, maybe even today, and you're tired of hearing this, we believe that we're helping everybody along the grief path. And we cannot, almost everybody, a few of the folks are flying their own DNA, but almost everyone here has suffered a loss, a very important and significant loss, and you're at some stage of grief. And there's no way to say it any other way than that. And believe me, we know that we're not here to alleviate your grief. That's not something that we're capable of doing. But what I do think we can do with events like tonight is we can help move you along the path to almost fulfillment and closure by doing some celebration, by celebrating the lives of those aboard, because everybody aboard in some way has got a connection to space, and they got their connection through science fiction, through watching astronauts go to space and saying, that's what I want to do, or that's what Dad always wanted to do. So I think we're really here, we're trying to help the catharsis a little bit, and I hope we're able to succeed with that. And so it's not bad to have a little bit of enjoyment at a memorial service. And that's what we're going to do tonight. It's going to be a little bit different tone than we had at the really compelling services that we had this afternoon. We're going to celebrate just a little bit. So I hope everyone's in that mood. We don't mean to in any way diminish your loss. What we're hoping we can do is help you share the joy of space participation. So that's how I work it in my brain anyway, and hopefully that'll help you guys a little bit. We're really honored tonight to have really an amazing lineup of speakers, both live and some videos. There's two parts to tonight. Part one is a celebration of Star Trek. And there's really no other thing to say about it other than I will tell you a couple of stories. I think I was a junior at Georgetown in Washington, D.C., and we had gotten a small contract from NASA. It was the first time NASA ever paid anybody to look at the social science implications of space. We ended up writing a book about it. Our NASA monitor happened to be a member of the von Braun rocket team, Jesko von Puttkamer, great name. And Jesko was a huge Star Trek fan and was a close personal friend of Gene Roddenberry. And so one day, the dean of the graduate school called me up and said, "Hey, you want to go to lunch with Gene Roddenberry?" Whoa, yes, of course I do. And that was the day that changed my life in so many ways. It happened on the day that 3 Mile Island melted down, just about 80 miles up from where we were in Georgetown. But I sat down with Gene Roddenberry and found him to be delightful, very interested in humanity's role in space. He was just an amazing man to meet, and as I said, it changed my life. Fast forward to a second story. When we started Celestis, 1996, I had a friend who ended up later being the deputy administrator of NASA, and she was on the board of the National Space. She was the executive director at the time of the National Space Society. And I noticed that Majel Barrett Roddenberry was on the board of the National Space Society at that time. So I called up my friend and I said, "You know, I saw that astronaut Jim Weatherby had taken Gene Roddenberry's ashes on the space shuttle. And that was all hush-hush. NASA was a little bit, well, we can't really do this. But there's an astronaut personal kit, they call it, where you can take up your own stuff." So Mr. Weatherby flew Gene Roddenberry on the, from what I can tell, the first ever memorial space flight. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I can get Gene Roddenberry on our first flight. We were due to fly on a Pegasus out of the Canary Islands, and so I approached Majel, and I said, actually through another friend, Deke Slayton's widow, Bobby, who also knew Majel. This story will have an end, I promise you. But long story short, she agreed to let us fly Gene on our first flight, and he and Timothy, the iconic Timothy Leary, were the two headliners on our first flight. But I got to meet Majel. She came up to Vandenberg. We were flying out of the Canary Islands. Well, we wouldn't have had a very big crowd at the memorial service in the Canary Islands. By the way, if you've never been there, go tomorrow. It's amazing. But we went up to Vandenberg and held our memorial service, and Majel came up there. And I was delighted to meet her. And she said, "Charlie, you got to make me a deal." She said, "I'm happy that you're flying my husband on this flight, but what I really want to do is when my time comes, I'd like you to promise me that you'll fly Gene and I together on a mission that goes into deep space and lasts forever." Okay, I'm 27 years old at the time. I don't know any better. I say, "Sure, we'll do that," not having any idea how we would be able to do it, but knowing, we'll get it done. That's the beginning of the Enterprise flight. Right there is my promise to Rod's mother that I would fly the two of them together when I could. That was 1997. Now we're 2 days away from me getting an enormous weight off of my shoulders of fulfilling a promise to Majel. Thank you. Thank you so much. That began our connection. That's why we have the Enterprise flight today. And people say, "Well, how did you convince all these Star Trek people to fly with you?" Easy. I just sat back and let organic time pass. Unfortunately, Jimmy Doohan passed away, and I was watching TV, and I saw in Jimmy Doohan's will, "I want to fly like my buddy Gene." And fortunately enough, we were able to reach Wendy, and Jimmy Doohan joined the crew. A little bit later, more recently, Kyle Johnson, Nichelle Nichols, joined the crew. A little bit later, DeForest Kelley joined the crew. A little bit later, Rod Roddenberry joined the crew. So, as I said earlier today, I get to name all the missions. That's the CEO's privilege. This one was a no-brainer. We're going to call it the Enterprise flight because we have all these folks on board. And then through just absolute happenstance, not planned, we ended up flying on a rocket named Vulcan. So this is a mission that is in the stars. That's what I have to say about that. I'm so proud that we're able to do this mission, not just for the Star Trek folks, not just for the former astronauts, but also for the truck drivers, the restaurant owners, the kids. Tragic stories all. But it all coalesced around Enterprise. And that's why I felt like tonight was the night to celebrate Star Trek, Celestis, and Hollywood. Because really, we're all about visibility. If you don't know about us, you're not going to fly with us. And thank you, Star Trek people, for helping us make this mission a very visible worldwide mission. And that's what we're going to celebrate tonight. That's really what I'm proudest of. So, end of Charlie's stories for a while at least. And we will start, we've asked, leaned on, arm twisted, you name it, number of our guests here this evening to just say a few words, to talk to you guys about their view of how the Star Trek universe and the reality of sitting on a Vulcan rocket have come to pass. So that's part one of tonight. Part two of tonight is we're going to hear from the folks that are actually going to fly this thing. We're delighted to have we have Tori Bruno on video, and we have Barb Egan from ULA here to tell you a little bit about the mission that you're going to see. So I think it's going to be a really interesting and useful evening, and with that, I promise that I'll get out of the way and let the interesting stuff happen. Our first speaker tonight, Wendy Doohan. There's been no better spokesperson, friend of Celestis over the years than Wendy, who has trekked to New Mexico, trekked to Florida, tolerated me. Please come and talk to us again. Jimmy Doohan is beloved by everybody. The stories are legendary. The number of engineers that I've personally met at SpaceX and other places who said, the reason I'm an aerospace engineer is I want to be like Scotty. That's that nexus between the reality and the films that's just so very real, you can't deny it. Wendy, thank you very much for your support over the years, and if I can ask you please to come up and say a few words.
Good evening. It's way up there. Okay. Good evening. So I've been writing notes all afternoon, listening to everybody. I'm not good at that. Okay. You good? Okay. I've been writing notes all afternoon, listening to everybody's stories, and they're so remarkable. And so I'm kind of glad that I was asked to speak about the fan aspect of Jimmy's being on this flight. There's many of you who have participants and people who are on this flight who were Star Trek fans. And what you don't know is that Jimmy was the hugest fan of all of you. He knew that without the fans, Star Trek would not have endured the longevity that it has because they were the support system that kept it going for everybody. And he really appreciated that, especially when it came to work. I have to try and read what I scratched out here today. Well, yeah, in fact, I was a fan. I actually asked, don't mind the guy in the front, yeah. I actually, being a fan, That's how I met Jimmy. I went backstage and asked for his autograph when he was doing a play in San Francisco. So sometimes fandom does pay off. He's always loved space travel, and he wasn't a real star traveler, but he played one on TV. If anybody had offered him a real seat on a real rocket, he would have taken it in a heartbeat. He would have been out of the house in a shot. If he had been alive when Bill Shatner went up, there would have been a little bit of a tussle to see who actually got that seat on that aircraft. I would like to thank Celestis for giving me the opportunity to join Jimmy on this flight, sending my DNA. And I look at this as like our last big adventure together. And I know he'd be thrilled to be surrounded by so many fans, as well as the vast collection of talent and intellect that's on board this ship. And I can see him now. He's holding court, discussing and trading scientific theories, and looking for that dog, because he always had a dog. He always had to have a dog with him. And he's never been without one. So without all of you, this really wouldn't be the dynamic flight that it is now. And I know that Jimmy is absolutely excited to be flying with your loved ones. So thank you, Celestis and ULA, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, and what a pleasure it is to have you and Larkin, Jimmy's oldest daughter, here with us this evening. Eldest, excuse me. A big part of what we do at Celestis, and this goes all the way back to my former boss, Deke Slayton, is to try to figure out a way to give back to the community from what we do. So every mission that we do, we take some of the money you guys pay us, and we give it away to charities that we think advance space, advance conservation on Earth, or just do good. And the fun part about being CEO is I always get to choose them. And we've done some cool stuff. I think one of the coolest things we've ever done, and the first time we've ever made a 5-year commitment to a charity, is to the Nichelle Nichols Foundation. Absolutely. It's due to that foundation and Nichelle's glowing, still, personality that we have the Bridge of the StarTrek here. And by the way, when you go, here's a non-paid announcement. When you go back there and you take your picture, scan that little QR code and make a contribution to the Nichelle Nichols Foundation. It's doing important work for the youth, and my goodness, can the youth of America and the world stand to have the kind of example that Nichelle set. And I think anybody here knows that kind of thing. We're really honored that I was able to pry her son, Kyle Johnson, out of his paradise in New Mexico to be with us tonight. Before Kyle gets a chance to talk a little bit about his mom, we have a short video. Are we ready to do that video? That we're going to play about the Nichelle Nichols Foundation. Take it away.
She went into it to be an actress. She ended up changing the world.
What is a change in society? A change is you cannot even imagine a world any other way.
For most of the world, Nichelle Nichols is Lieutenant Uhura, pop culture icon. But what they don't know is that she changed the space program forever.
The astronaut corps was really kind of the old boys club. It was all white Anglo-Saxon male.
Oh, I dreamed of becoming an astronaut, but NASA said that women weren't being considered for the job.
The argument was made that there were no qualified black people.
When is America going to put a woman in space? When is America going to put a black person in space?
We could have done it.
if they would just let us.
I challenged everyone to answer the question, and NASA said, how about Lieutenant Uhura?
Ms. Nichols has gone from science fiction to science fact.
I will bring you so many qualified people. The world will never be the same again.
All I can do is think of Nichelle Nichols as a force of nature.
I said, if they let me in the door, I will open it so wide they will see the world.
Starfleet Command extends greetings to Commissioner Beale of the planet.
And remember, this wasn't really the 23rd century. It was the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement.
The vision of her on the bridge as a member of the crew was such a powerful message to African Americans at the time of what might be possible.
African Americans saw the show and went, what? You know, like, we're on TV.
There were Southern stations that told NBC, well, we're not going to run the show because you have a black woman on the bridge. And Gene Roddenberry told NBC, tell them to go to hell. Pardon my language, but that's exactly what he said.
There's a place for you on the Starship Enterprise. We're all going to the stars, not some of us, not just white men. We are all going.
Uhura, you're the only one who can do it.
I was pleased that in those days, when you couldn't get even blacks on television, that I not only had a black, but a black woman and a black officer.
You are away from your post, mister.
And that'll show them.
I told Gene after the end of the first season that I would not be returning to the show.
Terrified and overwrought.
That I wanted to return to my first love, which is musical theater. But I didn't know that meeting a Star Trek fan would change my life. I was told that the fan wanted to meet me, and I turned and looked into the face of Dr. Martin Luther King. I was breathless. He says, yes, I'm the Trekker. I'm a Star Trek fan. And he told me that Star Trek was one of the only shows that his wife, Coretta, and he would allow their little children to stay up and watch. And thanked him, and I told him that I was leaving the show. All the smile came off his face, and he said, you can't do that. He said, don't you understand that for the first time, we are seen as we should be seen? You don't have a black role. You have an equal role. And when I went back to work on Monday morning, I went to Gene's office, and I told him what had happened over the weekend. And he says, welcome home. We got a lot of work to do.
All channels clear.
Nichelle Nichols was a force to be reckoned with. This woman is a true hero.
She had this air of limitlessness.
She's uncompromising in her belief that the stars should be for everybody.
It's a big galaxy, Mr. Scott.
The work of Star Trek has always been to make people believe that our better angels will win. There is no better angel than Nichelle Nichols.
No goodbyes. Just good memories. Hailing frequencies closed, sir.
Please. Kyle Johnson. Welcome,
What a beautiful picture out here. Very moving today to hear all of you speak, and speak so fondly of people you love, and speak so glowingly of people who have accomplished so much and done so much for so many. All of that just adds to the great tapestry that we all have our threads running through in terms of what human beings are capable of doing. when they have the resources, the imagination, the love, the support, the ambition, and the commitment to fulfill their dreams. And I want to thank each of you that spoke today, and also some that maybe didn't speak, but I know that your presence here affirms what I saw in everyone else that did speak. Thank you. A few words about my mother. I lost her about a year and a half now, and it happened very suddenly, mercifully. She was in very good health up to the point where she was not. And when that shocking event occurred, of course, there were the announcements in the press and things on the television and media throughout. But one of the things that occurred that was completely unexpected was a call that we received from Celestis, inviting my mother to join you and yours in being participants in this flight. And of course, there were the, not surprising delays in bringing this about. We're counting down to the hours now when the launch will occur. But I want to say that I'll be eternally grateful as she goes into orbit eternally along with yours for that opportunity and for her to be placed there where she can be remembered, admired, can inspire, and create new energy for all of us down here. So I want to thank Charlie and the entire team, the crew, and all of the supporters. There were a few names mentioned. That was the mention of Jesko von Puttkamer, who is someone that I'd met. I'd spent time with him and his wife, and that extraordinary creature, the dog, the big Saint Bernard. Terrifying. But I was delighted to know him and Dr. Carrie Joels, whom I met a number of times. I'd like to also mention Jim Meehan, who was one of the top-level directors of the space shuttle program with Rockwell. And it was during that time that she became involved with NASA and NASA's recruitment for the space shuttle program, that she met Jim Meehan, and they became very quickly a mutual admiration society and worked together for many years until the time of his passing. So this brings back, a number of memories and refreshes some of the feelings that I had, during those periods in my life. I'd like to just go slightly off topic for a moment, because as I was packing up to come to the trip, I decided I wanted to bring this T-shirt. And for those that you could recognize at that distance, of course, that's one of the world's great photographers, Gordon Parks, whom I portrayed when I was 17 years old in the film from Warner Brothers, The Learning Tree. And that was during the period, of course, when Star Trek was still being filmed. It was right towards the end of that. And I was very proud. My mother was very proud because when the book came out, The Learning Tree. When I was about 12 years old, she was going, "Oh, if they don't make it too soon, Kyle will be just right." So with him in mind, very inspiring person, and my mother, of course, who has inspired, and I've witnessed the effect that she's had with so many people that either met her in person at the conventions or other circumstances, and came to be inspired by her. All of those who signed up to potentially become astronauts or mission specialists for the Apollo program, all of those people all of their preparation in life, up to that moment led to applying to that, and eventually themselves going into space on those missions. So for that, I'm eternally grateful that she was able to help to bring that about. The people at NASA loved her because not only were they Star Trek fans, but they had constant battles with the Congress and the amount of money that was going to be spent or not spent on the space projects. And so they welcomed her with open arms, that she was able to bring her celebrity and notoriety to a cause that enabled them to get the budgets that they needed and the resources that they needed and attract the talent that they needed. And she was a part of that, and they recognized it, and that's why she's so beloved there within NASA. And now that she is passed on and about to launch, her legacy, of course, continues. And in the back there, you'll see the set from the bridge of the Enterprise, not in all of its full glory, but one that we could present to you here. And those with the hearts and imaginations will probably feel that they're right there on the Enterprise. And so the Nichelle Nichols Foundation is to help bring forward, inspire, support, and make it possible for the next generation to fulfill their dreams in terms of becoming involved in space-related technologies, or whichever ones serve humanity best and they feel best suited to apply themselves. So the foundation will continue her work, inspired by her work with NASA and the recruitment program and so forth, and it will be serving youth of all backgrounds, dispositions, and aspirations. So please, like Charlie said, scan the code, take a look, consider donating to it. It is going to, we've only just begun. It actually began, as I said, the very surprising and wonderful occasion when we were contacted by Celestis only a few days after she passed. That also was the foundation. We began to establish that very shortly after that. So we are now a 501c3, and we're planning our first projects to occur later this year in the form of getting some of our talented young people to be recruited for space camp, in which down in Huntsville, Alabama, which we all know is a hotbed of rocket activity and scientific work. So please keep that in mind. I know that you have admiration for her, and she has admiration for you, for all of you, and just spread the word for the Nichelle Nichols Foundation, which will work into the future to get the future here just that much faster. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. And I did have an opportunity to meet Nichelle. And I've never met a person with a more powerful aura than Nichelle had. And it was an aura of peace. It was an aura of, just her presence was powerful to me. And I do think, as I said, it's the first time we've ever made a multi-year commitment to a charity, and we're thrilled to be, I believe, the first donor to the Nichelle Nichols Foundation. Yes. All right. Well, golly. Next up, I have said a couple of times, and I've said it directly to him, I'm not sure that there would have been a Celestis without the Roddenberry family. The inspiration that I got from my interaction with Gene, the support that Majel Barrett gave us early on. We were nothing at that point. So we're thrilled tonight to welcome Gene and Majel's son and grandson to be with us tonight. Rod is on board the Enterprise with his mom and dad, which is one of the great things about our DNA service, is that people can fly together. So what I can say about Rod is I've gotten to know him a little bit here in the last, I've known him for a few years because he's kind of had to wait like all of us to fly, but he's a very engaged and real person in his own right. He carries on the Roddenberry name with honor and distinction. So Rod, we are so pleased to have you here tonight and ask you to say a few words, as I said, from the bridge.
You know, forget my notes. I was just, what you just said there, you knew me when I was, it doesn't matter, I'm actually probably the same height, I'm not that tall. But much younger, and you said some kind words. I probably wasn't as engaged back in those days early on when you were talking to my mother and father, or my mother. But, well, you know, first let me say, you know, to everyone here that has lost someone who's participating in this, my love truly goes out to you. I know this is a very important thing for you. I use the word symbolic, but for all of us, the symbolism is different. It's very personal. It's very spiritual, perhaps. It's very appropriate, depending on what their love was and what your love is. But it is great to have such a unique and diverse group of people who are here sharing their families and their love with each other, truthfully. So thank you. The next thing, thank you to everyone at Celestis who has taken not just a couple years, but decades to make this happen. Many steps along the way, maybe a couple setbacks in certain ways, but this has been no small feat. And then a very special, I don't even know if thank you's enough. You know, I'm from LA, the land of integrity. Oh, I'm sorry, no, not the land of integrity. But to have a gentleman promise something 20 plus years earlier and deliver on it. And we're not just saying something like a phone call. It's hard to get phone calls in LA. To have someone say, we're going to launch your family member, your loved one, into space 20 years ago, and to deliver on that, that deserves its own round of applause, because I don't know if I've ever experienced that kind of integrity. So if anyone needs anything, just make Charles promise, you'll get it. I mean, it might take 20 years, but you'll get it. And the DNA option was actually quite spectacular. I had no idea you were going to do that, and that was an incredible opportunity. How many people have DNA going into space in a day and a half or less? Yeah, me too. But I thought that was really cool, and it was one of the fun ideas, and we've all, I think we're here because some of us appreciate space and science fiction, and our imaginations wander a bit, and we think about our DNA in space, and I thought about this when my mother and father were growing up. How cool if in 100,000 years, whoever, space is a big place, this is very unlikely, but it's fun to play with this. Maybe an intelligent species comes across this capsule or this machine, this craft, and picks, we already talked about, and picks it up and says, hey, there's something here, and then recreates it. And then, granted, it won't be us ourselves, but we get to exist again. And when I said this to a few of my friends who like to razz me a little bit, they brought up sort of the Rick and Morty aspect of a planet with a bunch of rods running around that have no concept of what being human is. So just, and it became a quick nightmare in my eyes. So, should my other self run into some of yours on a far-off planet somewhere, I hope we all get along. But I mean, that is truly what I love about this. This is also very special for me in a different way. Back in 1986, my father brought me here for my first launch, which was, I think, someone's gonna have to correct me on this, I think Columbia, but I came here with my father and I saw my first launch here. And now I'm here with my son, who is 10 years old, about the same age I was, Zale, and he's going to have his first launch. So this is a very personal, special thing for me as well. But bringing it back to what we're here for, or I'm here for, specifically me, I think this is a very appropriate, I'm using the word full circle, I'm not sure that's the right way to say it, but my father, with my mother at his side, created this idea of Star Trek, of humanity going into space, going where no one has gone before. And here we are, taking Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, and Majel Roddenberry, the first lady of Star Trek, to be sent out into space with an incredible group of people, diverse from the planet, diverse from walks of life, incredible people, just going out there. We are all going where no one has gone before. And this is the perfect ending for Gene and Majel Roddenberry. So thank you very much. And my son and I want to say one last thing. Ready? Get over here. Get over here. Live long and prosper.
This thing. All right. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Zale.
Not after you get the requests later on.
Yeah, right. I'll get to it in 20 years. Hey, by my calculation, we are the first ever commercial deep space mission. The world of science fiction and films and stars has got a lot of craftspeople behind it. A couple of those craftspeople are on this mission. The first one I'd like to talk about is Douglas Trumbull. Obviously that's a name that a lot of us recognize. Close Encounters, Star Trek, every major breakthrough that I can think of in special effects owes a debt of gratitude to Mr. Trumbull. We have just a short feature called Lighting the Enterprise about Douglas Trumbull. So if we may.
I'm Doug Trumbull. In 1979, when Star Trek the Motion Picture was made, I was
hired under extremely complicated circumstances to do the visual effects for the movie. I was a little bit arrogant. When I was asked if I would be interested in doing the visual effects for Star Trek, I said, no, that's a television series. And it was an extremely challenging project to do because it had as many shots in it as Star Wars and Close Encounters combined that we had to do in 6 months.
Any man who had managed such a feat, I would not dare disappoint. She'll launch on time, sir, and she'll be ready.
We said, well, we can just dam the torpedoes, so to speak, and we're going to figure out how to do this thing, and it will require working 24 hours a day. 3 crews a day, 7 days a week for the whole 6 months. And they were all VistaVision, and we were all 70 millimeter, so we had to figure out how to combine different formats as well during the production. It's very technologically complicated. Bob Wise knew I was a director, and he trusted me implicitly to fix this thing for him. And so I directed this entire sequence. I had a tremendous amount of creative freedom given to me by Bob Wise and the studio, and a virtually unlimited budget. This sequence was all about arriving at the Enterprise and cruising around it and doing this series of reveal shots. As you approach, you have to look through this dry dock to the Enterprise, which is docked inside of it, so you never quite get to see it. As the little shuttle vehicle, which has got Shatner in it, passes the Enterprise, we had to have a lot of interactive lighting, so it seemed to actually be there. So we did all kinds of compositing where we would make these silhouettes of the object by just photographing it unlit against a white card in the background. So you'll see shots of the Enterprise with just white behind it, and it's all just a silhouette. That's to create the matte so that you can superimpose it over the Earth or the stars. But there were a couple of shots we introduced to have weightlessness, of a little astronaut that flips upside down or little shuttles that go by in the foreground and background to establish scale. The shuttle comes around and you find it turns and then faces the Enterprise from the front. That's the big reveal shot. And that was where Goldsmith cut loose with the most beautiful music cue ever. And you get to see the Enterprise in its full glory. Richard Urasich and I came up with this whole new lighting concept, part of which was based on making the Enterprise so it could light itself up. That even if it was in deep space where there's no sun, no planet, no moon, no key, no fill, no nothing, it would look interesting and be credible as having lights on itself that shined up onto the nacelles, lights on the nacelles that shined onto the body, lights underneath that would shine up under the disk, and lights on the top that would shine out over the top of the disk. And then you just start moving in and moving in and moving in. And we had to build special lenses and special camera gear to actually get the camera close to the Enterprise. So there's this snorkel lens that would get the objective lens far enough and close enough to the Enterprise to actually move past it up close. I wanted it to be this beautiful, epic, spectacular sequence that had no dialogue, no story, no plot. Everything stops. And let the audience just love the Enterprise. I wanted everybody to buy into the beauty of space and the beauty of their mission and the beauty of the Enterprise itself. And just have everybody get out of the way and let that happen. which was something I'd really learned with Kubrick on 2001, is stop talking for a while and just let it all flow.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Aye, sir.
I think sometimes it seems that building the science fiction stories that we all love may well be as difficult as building the real thing, but I'll let the ULA folks talk to us about that in just a little bit. There are several other Star Trek personalities on board this mission, which is why it had to be called the Enterprise. Are we able to pull up the Greg Jean video, or did you slot that later? We have it. You have it? Okay, so another member of the Star Trek crafts trade is on this mission. And so, as I say, several more. And it's hard not to show everything, but you're all are probably about as geeky as I am, but there's certainly a point at which we have to say, wow. So the next participant on board that we're going to honor with a short video is another of the craftspeople of the Star Trek series, a gentleman named Greg Jean.
Greg Jean was a pioneering model maker and visual effects artist who worked in film and television for many years. He was fortunate early in his career to be associated with many multi-talented industry professionals. At Douglas Trumbull's Future General Corporation, a 3-month assignment as a model maker stretched into an 18-month project and an Academy Award nomination. Greg's major contribution to this film, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, was the ethereal and iconic Mothership, a virtual city in the sky that rises above Devil's Tower. Currently, this model is housed in the Smithsonian's Stephen F. Hazy Center. A second visual effects Oscar nomination came for overseeing the miniature work on Mr. Spielberg's 1941, a World War II comedy that boasted some of the most incredible practical miniature work ever put on film. Greg was also nominated for his work on television, including Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Angels in America. For over 3 decades, Greg oversaw the building of models and miniatures for a wide range of projects, working with Industrial Light and Magic, Boss Film Corporation, Paramount Pictures, Walt Disney Imagineering, and many others. Greg spent most of his time between projects restoring vintage motion picture and television props and pursuing his passion for collecting. His legendary collection was loaned to the Smithsonian, who displayed a large selection of his Star Trek original series props. Greg was a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, serving on the Visual Effects Steering Committee, as well as a participant in the Visiting Artists Program. He was a member of the Art Directors Guild, Local 800, as a set design model maker. Greg is well known in the industry for having a keen eye for young talent, hiring future award-winning visual effects artists for their first jobs. He especially savored serving as a mentor and teacher, championing their careers as he proudly watched their professional trajectories. He pushed for the inclusion of female model makers in his union, Local 44. To Greg's many friends, he was incredibly generous and caring and possessed a wicked sense of humor. Everyone knew of Greg's incredible talent and warmth, but his modesty didn't allow him to admit to either. Greg was loved by many, and his passionate and mischievous spirit will be greatly missed.
As several people have noted during the memorial service, there's just a whole lot of talent in this room. Unbelievable amount of talent. And for someone who was young enough to see the very first episode of Star Trek and not miss any of them along the way, it's personally very rewarding that we're able to honor so many of them who we've mentioned tonight and who we've not mentioned, but they're all on the Enterprise. Okay, time to, just as a lot of the great engineers spent their youth with their head in an astounding comic book or reading Ray Bradbury or being inspired by any number of science fiction novels and writers, it's time to talk about the move from fiction to reality. It's time to talk about that rocket out there on the launch pad. And we're thrilled, thank you. I had been knocking on the door at the United Launch Alliance, I don't know, maybe 10 years. Seems like it takes me a long time to do anything, doesn't it? But, not everybody just listens to me and says, yeah, I'll do that. A gentleman took over the presidency and CEO of ULA, and boy, what a sea change. I want you all to hear from Tori Bruno, who is A, about the nicest person you'll ever meet, B, a true rocket scientist, and C, just as enthusiastic as he can be about hosting your loved ones on his very first launch of the workhorse of the future. So thank you, ULA. Thank you, Tori. And let's pull up Mr. Bruno's presentation.
Hello, I'm Tori Bruno, ULA's President and CEO. I am truly honored to have you join us in Florida for this historic launch. Thank you for the trust you've placed in ULA to carry your loved ones to space. This is a responsibility we take very seriously. As I'm sure you're all aware, this is the inaugural launch of ULA's Vulcan rocket. Our Vulcan rocket design builds on the tremendous heritage of ULA's Atlas and Delta rockets, with history stretching back to the dawn of the space age. This first flight is the culmination of many years of work by the ULA team. We are incredibly proud of this rocket and the tremendous effort it represents. Vulcan is going to make a difference, not just in space, but in our daily lives for years to come. It will help us monitor climate, connect the world, and explore the mysteries of our place in the universe. We are honored to be entrusted with the Enterprise and Tranquility missions. Enterprise flying to deep space with our Centaur upper stage, an undeniably cool mission and a lasting tribute to your explorers, riding Centaur through our vast solar system, and Tranquility, flying with Astrobotic's Peregrine lunar lander to land on the moon, another meaningful tribute and exceptional final resting place. I'd like to thank Celestis for their partnership in support of these missions, and on behalf of the entire ULA team, we are humbled to have a role in fulfilling the dreams of the hundreds of participants from around the world. We are excited to share this historic moment with you and to have your loved ones on board. While all launches are unique, this one is especially meaningful. We are proud to carry the hopes, dreams, and legacies of your families, sending them on to sail the endless ocean of space. May I personally wish them the traditional farewell of voyagers from the earliest days of exploration. Fair winds and following seas. Go Vulcan, go Centaur, go Enterprise, and Tranquility.
We're very lucky that, you know, they're a little bit busy over there at ULA tonight, but they allowed us to be blessed by Barb Ergen, who is, let me get your title officially. I may have to put my binoculars on to do that. But Barb is NASA Program Director at United Launch Alliance. And she's going to walk you through this amazing machine you're about to ride on. Barb?
Okay, and is it up there? There we go. Hello, all right, good evening, everyone. I'm Barb Egan. I am with United Launch Alliance. I'm the program director for all of our NASA and exploration missions, and I am honored to be here tonight and tell you a little bit about our Vulcan rocket that is getting ready to launch with some outstanding missions on board. So let's see if I can make this work. There we go. All right, so United Launch Alliance, we have been a company since 2006, and we are a joint venture of Boeing and Lockheed Martin. We've been flying both the Atlas and Delta launch vehicles, and we have had 158 successful launches with 100% mission success. You can see all of the rockets up here that we have. And we always say that our most important mission is our next mission. And that's what you see highlighted in the red box at the bottom right, that is our next mission. And our next mission is the Vulcan Centaur certification flight number 1 that has the Peregrine lunar lander and the Enterprise mission flight on board. So United Launch Alliance is a gateway to space. A little bit about us. We have 2 million square feet of manufacturing in Decatur, Alabama. You can see in the top pictures, the top right, our manufacturing facility. It is a large facility. We bring raw materials in one end and we put rockets out the other. On the upper left, you see 3 different launch vehicles. The largest on the far left is the Vulcan rocket. The one in the middle is a Delta IV, and the one on the right is an Atlas V. The Vulcan rocket, the large diameter on the left, is the one that we will be launching tomorrow, early Monday morning. We use a custom-designed rocket ship to transport our rocket ships from Decatur, Alabama, down the river and through the ocean over to Cape Canaveral or to Vandenberg. But we're here at Cape Canaveral. We'll be launching there tomorrow night. We have 3 launch pads on 2 different coasts. We fly out of 2 launch pads here at Cape Canaveral. We'll be flying out of Complex 41, and the other launch pad is at Vandenberg Air Force Base, or Space Force Base. And we fly critical missions for our country, telecom, Earth exploration, weather satellites, national security space, and exploration as well. A little bit about the Vulcan rocket, not to go into too much technical detail here. I'll start on the left-hand side. We do have our 2 BE-4 engines. Those are built by Blue Origin, and they are at the bottom of our booster section. The Vulcan booster is fueled with liquid oxygen and liquid natural gas. We also have 2 solid rocket boosters attached to the main liquid booster. These engines will put out about 2 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. We have an interstage adapter that joins our two stages together. There is an upper stage called the Centaur. It's a thin-walled stainless steel tank. We've been flying a Centaur for many, many years on top of Atlas rockets, and we have increased the diameter for this for Vulcan. So it is the most powerful upper stage out there, thin-walled stainless steel construction with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, flying two RL-10C11A engines built by Aerojet Rocketdyne. On top of the Centaur, we have the launch vehicle adapter, and at the launch vehicle adapter is where the Enterprise mission carriers are installed on the side of the on the side of the LVA. I have another picture coming up later, but you can see a little bit where we have the carrier and the location on there as well. And then there's a payload adapter on top of that, where the Peregrine spacecraft is attached, and that is all encapsulated inside of a 5.4 meter diameter composite payload fairing built by Beyond Gravity. And so all of that goes together to make up the entirety of the rocket. So the rocket has had quite a journey. On the upper left, you will see a Vulcan booster in the center of the photo. It is definitely a very large diameter compared to the Atlas and the Centaur 3 on either side flanking that. So you can see we've been growing the size of our rocket and the capability and power that we have. We've gone through a lot of testing with the Vulcan rocket development. We've tested our GEM 63 XL solid rocket motors. We've flown nearly 30 of the GEM 63s on the Atlas vehicle, and we stretched the size just a little bit and retested those before we get to the Vulcan flight. So we feel like we've gotten very good testing in, and we're ready to go with Vulcan. We've also done quite a bit of testing on the BE-4 booster engine as well, there on the bottom left. And we did a tanking test with all of the components to make sure we were able to fuel and defuel and everything was safe there on the ground. And then last summer, July timeframe, we got into our successful flight readiness firing, where we had everything all put together except for putting the payload fairing and our precious cargo on top. And we went through a full tanking test and even lit the engines briefly to show that all of the ground systems worked and that the rocket itself worked. We did a quick shutdown and were able to turn around there. So it's giving us confidence that we are ready to go. So over the past several weeks, we've had final launch preparations. Starting from the left to the right, we have erected the booster stage onto our launch platform. We installed the two solid rocket boosters, and then the interstage adapter. And on top of that interstage adapter, we put our Centaur upper stage. And then over at the Astrotech facility, we encapsulated the Peregrine lunar lander as well as the Enterprise mission on the launch vehicle adapter inside the payload fairing, and then that entire stack was put on top of the rocket in the vertical integration facility. And just yesterday, we rolled to the launch pad. So there's the glamour shot being out on the launch pad, and hopefully tomorrow you'll get a chance to see that as well. So I believe you all get a photo opportunity out there near the Vulcan rocket tomorrow, and you'll see us on the launch pad. So we're sitting there safely waiting for countdown to begin tomorrow afternoon as we get into our power on and our cryogenic tanking for a 2:18 a.m. launch on early Monday morning. So a little bit about the mission. Just to give you a little overview, it's kind of a tiny little chart there, but at liftoff, again, I think I mentioned we got 2 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. About just less than 2 minutes into flight, we jettison the solid rocket boosters. They burn out in just under 2 minutes. They provide the liftoff to get off, to get off the Earth. And then at about 5 minutes into flight, we have drained all of the fuel in the booster tank. So it's a very, very large tank, and we go through all that fuel in about 5 minutes. We shut down the booster engines, and we start a separation sequence where we let go of the upper stage. The upper stage engines will light, and a few seconds after that, the payload fairing will jettison. After the payload fairing jettison and we're burning our upper stage, we burn for about 10 minutes or so, and we shut that down and we coast. So we're in our low Earth orbit at that point. We coast for about 28 minutes, and then we will light the upper stage engines again for about 4 more minutes, and then we will coast again for a short while we're in a like a translunar injection orbit, a highly elliptical orbit, and then we will separate the Peregrine spacecraft, and it will be on its way to the moon. After that, we will light the engines again. We will do a third burn, and that third burn is about 1 hour and 18 minutes into flight. It's about a 20-second burn, not very long, and it gets us into the heliocentric orbit, and that is where the Tranquility mission will be. Or I'm sorry, not Tranquility, that's the one going on Peregrine, the Enterprise mission, my apologies. And so that's just over 1 hour and 18 minutes into flight. A little bit of close-ups here on the integration of the Enterprise mission into our launch vehicle adapter. So you can see on the left we have the carrier in there where all the individual capsules are lovingly placed, and then we were able to put those on the side of the launch vehicle adapter, and you can see there are the 2 carriers right here on the side of the launch vehicle adapter. And just a big overview of the Enterprise flight final interplanetary orbit. You can see there's a red orbit line in there. The orbit is it's heliocentric. It goes around the sun, and it is between the orbits of Venus and Mars. A similar orbit to Earth, but it is out in deep space itself between Venus and Mars. And with that, I'll wrap up, and I want to say thank you. We are humbled and honored to have this mission aboard our Vulcan flight, and we are looking forward to launch, and we'll start countdown tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you so much, Barb, and sorry about the typo, and you got 2 different names. You're like me. People call me Chafer, Chauffeur, Schaefer, Chafee. So we're really going to go, folks. We're getting close. First, I have to announce that my friend Dan from Astrobotic got pulled away at the last minute, said his apologies, said I really wanted to be there, but I just can't be. So we're going to not have that, but we have a couple of other elements that we want to add. First, I want to do something. I want to recognize all of y'all, but I also want to say we have another sort of special guest with us today, and I'd like to acknowledge Story Musgrave, one of NASA's most practiced astronauts. And thank you, Maria Sang, for dragging him along with you. Second, Mark, you okay? Mark is got a little bit of more to share with you about one of our other participants at DeForest Kelley. Go ahead, Mark, step up.
Hello, once again. We're almost done. Did you guys expect this? Were you expecting this? Yeah, I know it's a long wait, but sometimes it's worth the wait at the end. I've known and actually worked with DeForest Kelley, and those that don't know D. Kelley, he was Bones McCoy on classic Star Trek. But interesting trivia for me, since I'm a huge Western fan, DeForest Kelley has been in so many classic Westerns. Oh my God, I can't remember the movie where he was part of the, it's almost like a Tombstone movie. I can't remember, my God, brain lock. Burt Lancaster played one of Wyatt Earp, and yeah, but he's been in so many Westerns. So one of his really, really close and dear friends that spent a lot of time with Dee and Carolyn, his wife name was Carolyn, her name was Chris Smith. And she sent something along that she wanted me to share with all of you guys. We had a video about Dee, but obviously we couldn't get that working properly, no big deal. But he is, if you do not know, Chris was the one that supplied us with the DNA of DeForest Kelley. That's why he was allowed, not allowed, but he was able to go on this flight via his DNA. Real quick, I'm going to read this, and it says, the DeForest Kelley I knew. Not long before DeForest Kelley received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Chris Smith wrote Dee a letter, which I will be forever grateful he was alive to receive. I want to share a truncated version of Chris's letter during this very special occasion. Dear, dear Dee, where do I begin? Your star ceremony gives me the opportunity to get really serious for once and pour out to you all the love and respect you've engendered seemingly forever. So where are the words to adequately express any of it? I'll try. Your skill as an actor is exceeded only by your skill as a wonderful human being. You deserve your star. You meet, exceed, and annihilate the criteria for being awarded a star. In fact, without exaggeration, I can easily envision you being named Man of the Year. I think the Creator, the real great bird of the galaxy, delights in you and sees you in the same way. He sees Yosemite or a healthy new bud on a rose bush as a mighty fine piece of workmanship. If he does say so himself, I don't know what else to say, how else to express how proud I am of you, how lucky I feel to have met you and follow you as a fan, and how blessed I am to know you well enough to know that I'm right about all of the above. You are an inspiration to me. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. I love you, Dee. Love, Chris. So this was a letter that she became even closer, I guess, due to this letter, if not more, where she was a personal friend of DeForest Kelley and Carolyn, and they were lifelong friends all the way up to their death and beyond. Let's say that. So other than that, we're about at the close of the program, and I know a lot of you have probably been wondering, I'm going to bring up someone next who's going to give you very, very important and vital information about what the heck's happening tomorrow morning. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, our president, fantastic dude. Fantastic job on this entire memorial. I hope you really appreciate, and it's day one, guys, day one. Kobe Youngblood put this all together, had all the thoughts of how he wanted this to run, and I think we did a damn good job. How about that? So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kobe Youngblood.
As always, thank you, Mark. So I was watching the ULA video, and there was a photo, and it sparked a memory, and I feel the Enterprise families need me to share it real fast. I promise I'll be brief. On March the 13th, 2023, I personally hand-carried the Enterprise flight capsules here to Florida from Houston, and I was dressed in the full white bunny suit with the ULA engineers integrating the Enterprise flight into the piece of the spacecraft. I got to personally see that and be a part of that, which was very moving for me. But it wasn't just moving for me. Something that caught me by surprise was how moved the ULA engineers were in handling of the Enterprise flight capsules. They were moved. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Some of them thanked me for giving them the ability to touch your loved one's flight capsules. It was a very moving moment inside that clean room, and I just wanted to share that with you, and that I want the Enterprise families to know that the ULA engineers that were integrating your loved one's capsules really took that to heart, appreciated it, and wanted you to know that they absolutely loved doing that job for you. So I'd like to say a shout out to ULA engineers who integrated. So we're almost there. Just like Charlie said, we're so close. So tomorrow, I just want to do a quick rundown so everyone knows where to be and when to be. So tomorrow, I think hopefully everyone has registered. If you have not registered, that means you don't have a badge. You definitely need to do that. Come see us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I think most people have registered, but we're going to start our ULA tour. So for those of you who have signed up for the ULA tour, a couple of really important things that you need to know. We have 6 buses, and they're going to come in a staggered formation of 2 buses at a time. The first 2 buses will load at 10 a.m. For the remainder, I don't have them off the top of my head, but in your family pack, if you look and see what on your little red dot will tell you what your bus is, and your family pack, there's an agenda, and it will tell you exactly when those 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 load. But I know I'm on bus 1, so I know we're loading at 10 a.m. Buses 1 and 2 are loading at 10 a.m. Where to be? Right out front. So at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're going to have 6 buses lined up right in front of the convention center. Buses 1 and 2 will load at 10 a.m. That ULA tour will last approximately 3 hours. Bus 6 should be in at 12:55. But something, again, super important, please have your government ID with you. Please, government ID. So to get on our buses, because we're actually going to an actual Space Force base, please have your government ID on. Our bus captains will not let you onto the bus with your government ID. So for those of you on buses 3 and 4, and thank you for bringing me that, the bus loading times for bus 3 and 4 will be 10:30, and the bus loading times for 5 and 6 are 11 a.m. So if you're on bus 1 and 2, it's 10, buses 3 and 4 at 10:30, and buses 5 and 6 at 11. That is going to be an amazing time. So let's talk about the launch. So it's a late night launch, very early morning. And we talked about traditions. Celestis has a really cool tradition. It's called the pre-launch briefing. So before we head out to Sandpoint, before we go to Sandpoint Park, we're going to meet in here at 11:30 p.m. tomorrow night. All of us are going to meet in here. And Charlie Chafer, our CEO and founder, is going to give you the official pre-launch briefing on what could happen on our launch tomorrow night. So that will begin at 11:30 p.m. inside this convention center. Our buses will be lined up outside, also at 11:30. So as soon as our pre-launch briefing is over, you will load your buses right out that main door. Your bus will be on a yellow, for the launch viewing event, you should have a yellow dot, and your number inside that yellow dot is going to be 1 through 9, and that will be when you board the bus. So I anticipate the pre-launch briefing will go approximately 15-20 minutes, and we should be loading at approximately midnight tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to head out to Sandpoint Park. We will watch the launch, and once it's over, we'll all get on the bus and we'll come back. We're anticipating coming back at approximately 3 or 3:30 a.m. Okay, so if you have any other questions, please see a Celestis staff member. We're got our fingers crossed, expecting something awesome tomorrow night. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Charlie Chafer. I'll be hanging out. If anybody has any other further questions or just want to chat, I'll be around. Thank y'all very much. We appreciate y'all.
We debated whether to stay out at the park through the third burn to make sure that we knew everything had gone well. Most people wanted to come home, so bring your cell phones and go to ulalaunch.com, and you can follow the burns that Barb talked about, and we'll know at the end of the third Centaur burn that we've had the great success that we expect. Okay, we're at the close. How many of you guys signed up and were thinking you were going to fly on Sunjammer? Do you remember that mission? Anybody here remember? There's a few of us out there. Sunjammer was a NASA project to fly a giant solar sail inward to the L1 point for monitoring solar storms. It was a really cool mission. We were selected as part of the winning team as the commercial infusion partner. Got down the road, and golly gee, the program got canceled. So that was our first real attempt at this Enterprise flight. As part of that mission, Any classic rock fans here? Yeah, okay. Well, you'll know the name Greg Lake. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson, Oh What a Lucky Man, the first song on my brand new stereo when I was 16 years old. Greg contacted us and said, what a cool mission. I want to write the theme to your mission. That mission was called Team Encounter at the time. I traveled over to London and partied like a rock star with Greg and his wife, Regina, who took me all around London, made me feel really important, driving around in a Range Rover with Greg Lake. Man, you can't get any better than that. Greg passed away, but he left us with a piece of music that's never been played in public until tonight. So we're going to end tonight with the Encounter Symphony, authored and written and produced and performed by Greg Lake. And with that, at the end of that song, we'll bid you all good night, and we'll pick it up again tomorrow.